With the Mac release of the latest installment in the Civilization franchise fast approaching, we've made this video about the new features in Civ 5 and how they've improved the playing experience, making this game even more addictive than before. The first thing you'll probably notice is the new look and set of graphics. For example, the world map feels more organic than before. There's an overall increase in detail, surfaces have more textures, and animals seem more realistic. Additionally, different terrain types are visualized and mixed in such a way that it actually looks like you are watching the world from a distance. Geologic formations, such as mountains, have a more realistic sensation of volume. They're taller now and must be strategically considered when moving troops around. In addition, unexplored territories are no longer covered by complete darkness, but are instead covered up by what's called the fog of war, a sea of clouds which hides regions waiting to be discovered. This feels more natural as a representation of the great unknown. The heads-up display has also gone through some changes. It now has a strong Art Deco style, and it shows a functional design that doesn't interfere with the actual gameplay experience. Also, you now have the option of choosing between different viewing modes. If you don't like viewing the whole Civ 5 playing experience as if you were a godlike figure controlling a miniature universe, you can always change to the strategic viewing mode, which gives the feel of playing a board game. This allows you to see the map as a set of tiles, each with different properties you can take advantage of. Strategic view allows you to more plainly see your strategic options, although some might prefer to experience the more visually stunning graphics in normal mode. This takes us to one of the major changes in Civ 5, which is the new hexagonal grid system. For those unfamiliar with the Civilization franchise, in previous games the world map was divided into square tiles. With the release of Civ 5, however, it's now divided into hexagons. First, this gives the map a more organic feel, as hexagons allow for more realistic landmasses and continents than before. The way combat is done has also been changed. With squares, you could be attacked from 8 sides. However, the new hexagons grant you and your enemies 6 options of movement, which makes the whole attacking-defending dynamics different. For instance, you now need fewer units to surround an enemy, making it harder for them to escape an attack. Experienced Civ players will get accustomed pretty quickly to this new setup, even though the hex grids are not visible by default. Now let's talk more in depth about how to deal with the cities in Civ 5. First, the way you'll deal with cities has been transformed from previous installments. The city interface has been revamped and simplified. In fact, the city screen doesn't change much from the normal map view. Culture generated by cities still determines the area that your territory comprises, but now you have the option of buying grids for cities. Not only is it practical to choose to expand your empire whenever you please, assuming you have the money of course, but buying specific tiles has a strategic value in itself. For instance, you can block the paths of foreign units just by buying tiles that will block their way. Now they'll have to go around your empire to reach their destination. Or if your city is located in a stretch of land between 2 big land masses, you can block the advance of other civs to the rest of the continent, leaving all that virgin territory to yourself. Another good addition to the franchise is that cities now have the ability to defend themselves. In Civ 5, you don't necessarily need troops to guard your cities, as they have a fixed number of hit points even when the garrison unit is not present, and, more importantly, they can also launch ranged attacks on nearby tiles. This will detract other players from attacking you. On the other hand though, it'll make you think twice about attacking other cities. The Hex Grid also makes cities a harder target to conquer, as there are now less adjacent tiles for you to launch an attack. Now you'll literally have to surround cities while enduring ranged attacks before taking them over. City-states represent another major change in the franchise. Basically, city-states are other political entities in the game that you don't compete against. As their name implies, they consist only of one city each, yet they have the power to alter the course of a game, as they can aid you or block your way to victory. As you meet these little entities throughout the game, you'll have the option of conquering them or of helping them in the different missions they'll assign to you. Whether or not you befriend a particular city-state depends on the type of game you're playing. If you plan on taking the diplomatic path to victory, it will be important to maintain a good relationship with them, as they will hold one of the votes necessary for victory. At the same time, they won't pose a threat to you by sending their troops to take over your cities. City-states will remain neutral if you're neutral against them. Now, if you enjoy playing the game in a more militaristic manner, you'll typically be able to walk all over these small states. They should be good practice targets before you decide to take on the big guys. City puppets are another small addition that makes playing the game a more complex experience. Annexing the conquered city to your empire always comes at a cost, as it will come with a pack of unhappy citizens that will make things harder for you. Civ 5 now gives you the alternative of adding enemy cities to your empire, not as cities of your own, but as puppet cities. As puppet cities, they'll still provide you with their science and gold points, while their citizens remain relatively happy. Cities are not the only aspect of the game that has changed. There are also changes in the way you deal with your military units. For instance, stacks of Doom are no longer possible in Civ 5. In other words, you can no longer place many different units on one tile. This makes the battles you wage more realistic, as they are now spread all across multiple tiles. As you'll want to protect your ranged units, you'll probably place them behind a line of melee units where they can safely attack the enemy from a distance. Then, as only one unit can go on one tile, you may place weaker units on mountains where they have an instant combat bonus. These new changes will have you applying traditional war strategy directly to your gameplay and decisions, since combat is not so much about amassing different units on one tile and creating these super powerful military entities. Rather, it's more about having a tactical approach in the way you deploy your troops. So we've mentioned most of the important changes in this new installment, but there are still some small additions we haven't talked about. For instance, Civ Diplomacy has gone through some light modifications. You'll still meet other world leaders who will all take a different position towards you. The difference is that now they'll have more pronounced personalities than before. Also, world leaders will now speak to you in their native tongue, which makes the whole diplomacy experience a little bit more realistic and thus more engaging. For instance, Bismarck will now sound more dominant when you meet him, as he will be talking to you in German. Thankfully for those of us who are limited in the number of languages we speak, you'll still have English subtitles for everything they say. In addition, there's the new diplomatic feature of doing research agreements. Here, you and another civilization decide to jointly contribute with a bulk of gold every turn for a specific amount of time. In exchange, the speed with which you acquire new technologies will increase by 15%. This can become yet another motivation for maintaining a good relationship with fellow world leaders, rather than giving them the Spartan treatment. Now let's talk about culture, another big change in Civ 5. Some might be disappointed that there are neither religions nor civics in this installment, though it's unfair to say they've completely disappeared. It's more that they've been merged into what's called social policies. Social policies basically are the way you, as a head of state, decide to run your people. You may decide to improve your relationship with city-states and choose patronage, or to increase your science output by choosing rationalism. Each policy has different benefits, most of the time focused on a specific area such as military or diplomacy. Choose your social policy wisely, as it can drastically change the way the game is played. There still is, of course, a way of winning the game through cultural means, and that is by building the Utopia project. To be able to start its construction, you first need to complete 6 out of the 10 different social policies, so be sure to have plenty of culture specialists in your cities. So we reviewed Civ 5's most notable new features, and we hope you'll decide to check them out for yourself when the game is released for the Mac on November 23rd, 2010. Be sure to visit GameAgent.com and the GameAgent non-blog for special deals and more information on Civ 5.